2024 has been one of the most active years for severe weather in recorded United States history. With over 1,700 preliminary tornado reports, 2024 will go down to have the second highest tornado count ever, only being beaten out by 2004. So join me on my documentation of one of the most active severe weather seasons ever. The Great Lakes storm season would start unusually quick, as on February 27th, a severe weather event looked possible in the Great Lakes region, with the chance for all severe hazards. While Illinois and Ohio were the star of the show, Michigan still had two confirmed tornadoes, an EF1 near Marshall, Michigan, and an EF2 in Grand Blanc. While I was not able to chase, a friend of mine was able to film the lightning activity in Grand Blanc as the storm was producing the EF2 tornado. This footage shot by Ben Stanley shows some of the damage after the tornado. Even though Michigan was off to a fairly early start, it wouldn't be until March 26th that it would be able to chase. The Storm Prediction Center would issue a slight risk of severe weather for most of central Michigan, including the risk for a tornado or two. A line of broken supercells looked possible. Even though instability was low, the strong wind shear could have made up for it. So my dad and I set off to chase. We made it north of Lansing as the now QLCS approached. Although we didn't see much, we saw a few brief embedded wall clouds, as well as a forming shelf cloud by the time we got home. My luck would continue going into April, as on April 2nd a very large tornadic setup took place across portions of Ohio and Kentucky, as the Storm Prediction Center would issue a 15% hatch risk for strong, long-tracking tornadoes. However, this did not fully verify in Ohio, which was a good thing, as less than a month prior, on March 14th, parts of Ohio were hit by multiple long-track significant tornadoes, like this one that hit Wapakoneta, Ohio, and was filmed by fellow storm chaser Tyler Berry. It wasn't until April 17th that I got my first real storm of the year. The day setup favored the possibility for strong QLCS, with damaging winds, hail, and maybe a few tornadoes. While my good friend Mikey Plemmons was documenting a large rain-wrapped tornadic circulation down to the south in northwest Ohio, I was documenting this gorgeous forming shelf cloud as the squall grew stronger. My next storm chase would be on April 23rd, which originally I had no plans on chasing because storms, if they did even form, looked to be elevated. An elevated storm is commonly mistaken for a storm with a high base. However, elevated storms are just storms that are not service-based, or in simpler terms, it usually prevents severe hazards from happening, especially tornadoes. After about 8:30 p.m., I realized the storms that had just passed over my house had rapidly intensified into rotating supercells, so I decided to head out and chase. We would drive straight into the storm, documenting the crazy active lightning activity, and around the same time, one of my good friends, Blaine Linsner, was getting hit by the storm and had 40 to 50 mile-per-hour wind gusts at his home. We continued chasing into the night as rain and hail started to fall, up to nickel size. It was only until the next day, when I reviewed the footage, that I saw this. A large lowering on the part of the storm that was rotating. The only issue is, this is the only lightning strike that illuminated that part of the storm. So I will never 100% know if it was a tornado, or the more likely case, a very out-of-place, scary-looking cloud. By the end of April, the year was starting to look good for me. And by May 3rd, forecasters at the SPC were already starting to hint at an upcoming PON system in the area, as the Storm Prediction Center issued a Day 5 slight risk for the region, which was fine-tuned over the next several days, and by Day 1, a large enhanced risk was issued over the region, including a 10% hatch risk for tornadoes. I was a little hesitant because of last month's underperformance in Ohio, but nevertheless, my mom and I set off for southern Michigan. Our initial plan was to head into Ohio later that evening for those storms. However, as we saw how some of the storms along the lifting warm front were doing, we decided to target those instead, which turned out to be a great idea. As we approached the supercell from the east, it started to wrap up and produce a tornado. Fellow chasers Ben Richmond documented the tornado as it dropped down. We arrived on the storm as the tornado was doing EF2 damage to our northwest.
Yeah. I think it's down there.
We were now surrounded by tornado-warned storms, and a tornado emergency would soon be issued for this tornado. Fellow storm chaser Jack Peltz was also documenting the tornado around this time. We soon went up the road a little further to see the rain-wrapped tornado die and cycle and produce a short-lived EF1. By this point, the storm was north of the warm front and was rapidly losing tornado potential. So we decided to target a new storm approaching from our south. We would gain visual on a large rotating wall cloud around 6:50 p.m.
I don't know if it's tornado warned. It might be. We just intercepted Michigan's first ever tornado emergence.
As we gained better visual, it was becoming clear that this storm had serious potential to produce a tornado. As right in front of our eyes, the RFD was starting to wrap around the backside of the wall cloud. However, if the storm was going to do anything, it would have to do it fast, as soon as it went north of the warm front, it would also die, just like the Sherwood storm.
Yeah, right up here. And then just pull up to the side, please. I need to report this, because this is, could produce a tornado in a second. Right, we'll start this speaker.
We kept up with the storm, but ultimately due to its weakening trend in bad terrain, we decided to head home. And around the same time we were heading home, storm chaser Mikey Plemmons was again documenting another beautiful storm, as this left-moving supercell was heading right for him.
Dreams.
Holy crap. Pickle, what? Yeah, beef. This is not Hillsdale.
By the end of the day, 4 Michigan tornadoes were confirmed, making it the largest Michigan outbreak of the year. As May continued, a few sporadic setups took shape for my region. On May 17th, these same storms I'm time-lapsing here produced this landspout tornado near Cass City, Michigan. It wasn't until May 20th, though, that my next big event would happen. The Storm Prediction Center would issue a marginal risk, which was later upgraded to slight risk, for the region. My initial target was going to be on the thumb. However, due to lack of convection, my sister and I decided to target the line of severe storms approaching from the west. We headed south of Midland and would find the perfect place to set up for the beautiful view of the shelf cloud.
Alright, this is probably good. Right here.
By around 8:30, we gained a view of a large forming wall cloud heading our way.
But it's really weird. There's no other dips, aside from over there.
In my opinion, this circulation was very close to producing a tornado multiple times, as surges of RFD kept pushing it closer and closer. For at least 30 minutes, we had an unobstructed view of an ominous green-hued shelf cloud approaching from the west. By this point, we decided to leave our position as the storm was approaching fast.
Alright, well, I'm gonna start driving. Are you good taking this?
Here we can see the once tornadic circulation with an RFD cut to our north, but by this point the storm is weakening.
There might be something back in there.
So after the storm weakened, we decided to head home and call it a night. By the end of May, the US had just gone through one of the most prolific severe weather outbreak sequences in modern US history, and the year was not done. On June 5th, a localized setup would produce 2 Michigan tornadoes, as the SPC issued a marginal risk for my region. Again, I would document beautiful storm structure as we chased this squall throughout our region. We started our chase to the south of Auburn, Michigan, as we waited for the storms to arrive. The high LCL provided these storms with a high cloud base. Not good for tornadoes, but gorgeous for storm structure.
I don't think I've ever seen a whale's mouth like that. You should get a photo of that.
When the storms eventually got to us, we decided to blast through Bay City, which was a very close call as the storms were on our butts.
Don't get sued. Sorry, Billy Corgan. Yeah, just keep going. I'll tell you. I don't know. Maybe we'll get a better visual of it here in a second.
We just barely made it through, and we're now positioning ourselves to the south of Unionville, Michigan to watch as the gorgeous storms approach.
We're not gonna see it.
As we are finally in the clear. No one's ahead of us. We're out of the city. It is right there. You can't see that through the camera. It's like, okay, right there, basically. So we got ahead of it just in time. So we're gonna get ahead of it, get some more photos, and then probably we'll just have it hit us or something, I don't know, or go through it.
There. Under this little tree.
Under this tree? Where?
This little tree right here.
Okay.
It's sitting out there. It looks like the Dominator.
It does not look like the Dominator.
Look at its eyes. It doesn't
That's
have
not.
any.
That is not the Dominator.
By this time, the storms would start a major weakening trend and would soon fizzle out. But nevertheless, we kept up for a little bit longer before turning back.
That thing was ripping.
I would continue to document several storms throughout the early half of June, and by June 17th, we chased a small microburst over Saginaw, Michigan, as we also got a shot of this rainbow. And by June 21st, a 2-day setup was looking to take shape. On the 21st, I documented 2 rounds of storms. On the 1st, I documented a brief, slowly rotating wall cloud and some outflow dominant structure. However, it wasn't till later that evening when I would see the best storms. As we were getting ready to chase, I had a decision to make. Do I A, want to go for the messy storms with weak updrafts that, if they congeal, could pose a threat? Or B, the small new storms popping out ahead? We went with A as the storms would merge and the updraft would strengthen. We made it to the Swan Creek area, however the trees were making it impossible to see anything.
It's definitely something. But I can't see it.
We could see some form of crazy cloud striations, but it wasn't until we turned onto a new road, where it cleared out, up ahead, that we saw the true view of the storm.
Let's get out.
Also, ignore how I'm calling it a wall cloud here, because it's not. I just got the 2 phrases mixed up, so that's my apologies.
Okay.
It's gonna get. There might be a break in the corn right here.
Yeah, that's a really fat wall cloud. Let's go right up there.
My glasses are clogging up.
Yeah, this is. There's a lot of inflow streaming into this thing. Like a lot. Let me get the full picture though. That's awesome. Wow. Not really sure. Can appreciate the way that they've cleared the roads here too.
Yeah, you got some fields rather than.
What the hell? We would keep up with the storm for the next little while, watching it as it slowly started to gust out.
What? Does it need to be complex though to be good? No. 40? 500? Let's do 500. That works. We don't want to get like in. Oh. That's.
There's the rain over there.
Yeah. Well, this might have been.
Rain wrapped.
This might have not been a good decision, but it's whatever. We're core punching. Oh yeah, those trees are getting swamped.
By around 7:15 p.m., we decided to head back as the storm was no longer at its full potential.
That's gonna hit us like any second. So
And even though this day was great, the next day was shaping up to be even bigger.
I mean, yeah.
The SPC would issue a 5% for my region, as a long-lived discrete supercell looked possible in a tornadic environment. However, this did not verify. Storm chasers waited for hours for any sign of convection initiation, but dud. However, a storm all the way to the north caught our eye. A developing supercell was slowly starting to rotate as it headed into a better environment. I had another decision. Do I want to go for this storm, or wait for a supercell to pop up in our area, which might not happen? The only issue with this storm was that it was all the way to the north in terrible chasing terrain. However, we decided to go for it anyway. We knew this would be a recipe for disaster if we got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. And as the rotation over radar looked strong by this point, we cautiously stayed away from the storm as to not get caught in the circulation. However, due to this, we did not get any good visual of the storm, as the trees obscured our vision. By this point, an EF1 tornado was on the ground to our north, but we had no chance of seeing it. Eventually, after the rotation let up, we decided to blast into the circulation. Powerful RFD winds were rocking our car as we followed the circulation from the backside. Eventually, the storm's rotation would die out, and we called it a chase and went back home. By June 25th, another big storm was taking aim at Michigan. A squall line with 70+ mile-per-hour winds was forecast for the morning hours of the day. Many Michigan storm chasers documented some of the greatest Michigan storm structure of the year, including fellow storm chasers Jack Peltz and storm chaser Drew Brummel, who was there to see some of the worst damage in West Michigan that morning, and has this to say about his chase.
So June 25 of 2024 was a really interesting chase, mainly just because how it was going to be an early morning MCS that was going to be moving through West Michigan. So I remember waking up during the morning around 4 in the morning, kind of traveled about an hour north towards Muskegon County, kind of being aware of the situation that I was kind of going into. Wasn't expecting anything too major, just kind of expecting maybe 60, maybe 70 mile-per-hour winds, and really nothing to the magnitude of what would eventually unfold of 80 mile-per-hour winds and destructive severe thunderstorm warnings for Muskegon County, Kent County, and Ottawa County. So definitely a chase that was memorable in terms of just how impactful it was and kind of how unprepared, I was when it came to that chase. So pretty wild chase overall.
And while I was missed by the main line, I still saw an amazing early morning shelf cloud as the storm intensified near my house.
We are 2024 for sure.
By the start of July, other chasers and I were noticing a possible tornadic setup that was taking shape for my backyard turf. The only issue is, I wouldn't be able to chase as I was going to be in Chicago. By the day of, an isolated tornado threat was taking shape for the area. And even though I wasn't able to chase, my good friend Blaine was out there dominating, as he chased a long-lived supercell through the thumb, which would produce the Port Hope tornado. This storm was a hard miss, as thumb storms always seem magical. Throughout July, I would document many other interesting storms, like this one on July 8th.
There we go, now we're lined up.
And these beautiful thunderstorms on the 12th, which lasted all the way until sunset and provided some of the most beautiful time lapses I've ever produced. The rest of July and August were slow for me, with a few storms here and there. However, Twisters came out around this time, which was awesome to see in theaters, and even though my late July into August was going slow, other chasers in the state like Ben Richmond and Drew Brummel were documenting awesome storms in late July and August. Like this one captured by Ben Richmond on July 29th, which nearly had a tornado south of Kalamazoo, Michigan. This damage from an EF2 tornado on August 6th, captured by Drew Brummel. And this supercell off the coast of Berrien County on August 16th, which nearly had a waterspout, captured by Ben Richmond. I wouldn't miss out on everything though, as on July 29th, I saw a nice dissipating shelf cloud to the west of Midland, Michigan. And on August 11th, I would document the northern lights. But by August 16th, I had been under a bit of a storm drought. However, that would change the next day. A few other chasers and I in the state were noticing a potential for a few waterspouts and or landspouts in the thumb region. So my dad, my sister, and I went out to chase. The first storm we targeted didn't do much of anything.
Scattered cumulus under downdraft. They get it, guys.
So we bailed east to get south of Reese, Michigan.
Okay, guys, new area. Windshield wipers. Shit, it's gonna get. Oh wait, is it on manual focus still? Might be.
Manuel?
Manual.
Where we noticed a large updraft column that was very
I don't
low.
know how to focus
And
this
then,
thing on.
boom. We we saw a very weak, likely landspout tornado. And my good friend Blaine was also just to the east of us and saw it as well.
Guys, it's still there.
My first tornado.
No, you've seen two before.
We kept up with these storms in case they did any other funny things, but ultimately it would gust out. But not before seeing this beautiful shelf cloud.
There's corn, bruh. There's a place where there's no corn.
By this point, the year was coming to a close. However, if you're a Michigan storm chaser, you know there's typically one final bang to the end of a year. And that was no different in 2024. By August 24th, the Storm Prediction Center would issue a 15% for the majority of the state, which would be fine-tuned over the next few days. And when I woke up on August 27th, there were already beautiful thunderstorms in my area. When I got to school, I checked models, which were showing a boom or bust for the afternoon ahead. And even though reliable models like the HRRR were not showing major convection for the afternoon ahead, my confidence remained high that a significant line of thunderstorms could take aim at the state if storms from Wisconsin could progress over to us, which they did. By around 3:30 p.m., my mom and I set off to chase. And shortly thereafter, a tornado warning was issued for my county, along with a considerable severe thunderstorm warning for 70-mile-per-hour winds. We would get as best of visibility as we could of the tornado warning, but to be honest, it was just a big mess, and it was completely rain-wrapped. We would, however, see this amazing shelf cloud as we chased.
Chat, we gotta pull you off the mount. You're coming with me now. Tornado, if there is one, is to the north. We're safe here, but I just don't really want to drive into 60-mile-an-hour winds.
It's gonna be Auburn.
Okay.
However, due to Bay City, we would fall behind the line of storms, and would be bashed by 70-mile-per-hour winds for the remainder of our chase.
Like a
We
dust
would
devil
eventually
from
fall
storm.
fully behind the line and call it a chase.
Keep going straight.
Yep.
However, on the way back, we stopped in Seedling, Michigan to check out some of the damage, as we heard they were hit hard. By this point, the year continued to slow down. On August 30th, my dad, my friend, and I went out to chase, as a slight risk was in place, coupled with the possibility for a tornado or two. But ultimately, nothing really came out of it, other than Jack Peltz getting this amazing waterspout wedge over Lake Huron. As we rolled into September, a few sporadic setups took shape. What looked to be the last setup of the year took place on September 24th. Unfortunately, I was not able to go. However, my good friend Mikey Plemmons was again out there dominating, and was seeing some of the most insane Michigan storm structure I've ever seen, along with a spin-up tornado or two. By this point, the year was over with storm activity. But other than the Northern Lights on October 7th and October 10th, there were no other events in the horizon. And with that, Storms of 2024 comes to an end. Yeah, and then it didn't. November 10th happened. An isolated tornadic setup would take shape across the region. And despite the lack of reassurance from the Storm Prediction Center, as they only had a thunderstorm risk in place, I stuck with my forecast, which verified, as 2 tornadoes were confirmed the next day, including what I believe to be a third that we saw in our chase. For a more detailed breakdown on everything that happened on this chase, go check out my latest video. Okay, so now the storm season is over, I promise, that's it. So I just want to do a little recap here. I documented at least 3 tornadoes, I want to say 6 shelf clouds, it might be a few more than that too, and some of the best storms of my life. And this year, 2025, I plan on getting out to the plains in June and July, either with a few friends or just chasing solo with my dad and I. And hopefully I'll be able to document some of the best storms I've seen to date, and all of those will be posted to this channel. My ultimate goal for this year is to reach around 1,000 subscribers and see 5 or more tornadoes, which the 5 or more tornadoes thing is only if I'm going out to the plains, otherwise I don't think I'll have a shot of doing that in Michigan. And of course, I want to give a thank you to you guys for subscribing to the channel and supporting it. I post on other platforms too, like Twitter or X, Facebook and Instagram, and TikTok as well. And I also want to give a thank you to those who let me use footage for this video. So I appreciate all of you guys, and until next time, stay safe, guys.